Paper Mario came out when I was just 6 years old. When I was that age, I had a mild obsession with Mario, so when I saw a new game with my favorite plumber on it, getting it was non-negotiable. It was probably all I asked for. But upon taking the game home, something felt dramatically different about this game compared to Mario 64, the game that more or less sealed the deal for my love of video games. Why was there so much reading, and why are Mario's enemies joining me on my quest to save Princess Peach? Wait, I can play as Peach now? As a kid, I couldn't fully grasp such a departure from the platforming formula, and because I was so young, the reading really felt like a chore to get through. My reading comprehension just hadn't developed, and I didn't understand most of the jokes in the game or the semi-obscure references or even how to use the map. I fell off the game pretty quickly and until this week never passed the first full chapter of the story. For the last decade and a half, my cousins and I had a running joke that none of us would ever be able to finish Paper Mario without getting together and putting all of our brain power toward beating it, because the game itself did not want to be beaten. Just look at my original save. More than 10 hours of playing for essentially no progress. This game is at max 30 hours long if you really milk it for everything it's worth. At the speed we were playing, we'd have topped 70 hours. Because of all those reasons, Paper Mario fell into the category of games that I deem too hard to ever beat, joining Ocarina of Time and, well, nothing else. It's a pretty short list. The only problem with that is, I made that list when I was 7 years old, and would you believe, I'm not 7 anymore. So in the last few years, I've realized that I needed to prove to my child self that I don't suck, and I've gone back and conquered Ocarina of Time. But as Paper Mario 64 was so difficult for me as a kid, I've always subconsciously hung onto that feeling of being completely lost. The series truly just passed me by outside of a brief stint that I had with Super Paper Mario, a very polarizing entry in the series. But until the Switch came out and people were drooling over rumors of a Thousand Year Door re-release, I really had no idea what people really thought of the series at all. A few weeks ago, my friend Liko Lotad told me I should play Paper Mario for N64 either as a joke or as actual advice. Sometimes it's hard to tell with him. But that got the wheels turning in my head, and I started to think about my time with the game. The memories of being stuck in dry desert, trying and failing to push a stone cactus in a way that I swore would make the dry ruins emerge from the sand so I could proceed. It never moved and they never emerged. But damn it, I am 25 years old. I am a college graduate with a mountain of debt to prove it. I can beat this game, no matter how much it's protested for years. Well, everyone, I can finally say that despite the heart-stopping moment about 14 hours into the game, where it appeared that the entire cartridge was wiped clean, oh, what the hell? This beast is slain. After finishing Paper Mario, I am ashamed it took me this long, but not because the game was easy. No amount of reading comprehension would have helped me conquer Paper Mario as a kid because it was far more challenging than I could have ever imagined. But I'm getting ahead of myself, we'll talk about that when we get into gameplay. This video is going to be broken down into two major parts, the story and the gameplay, because they really go hand in hand and they're the main two things that I want to talk about. Paper Mario's intro starts out by introducing the 7 star spirits in Star Haven. They're in charge of granting wishes for the inhabitants of the Mushroom Kingdom with the all-powerful Star Rod. They guard it and protect the kingdom with it until one day the dastardly Bowser breaks in, captures the star spirits, and steals the Star Rod to take over the world. Naturally, his first task as ruler is to kidnap Princess Peach and hire baddies from around the kingdom to guard the star spirits. Mario must save the 7 star spirits in an attempt to restore and combine their powers, the only way to potentially fight Bowser and return the Star Rod back to its rightful place in Star Haven. The overarching story seems pretty common for Mario games, but saying that Bowser kidnapping Peach is all there is to it would be doing a massive disservice to the excellent writing and storytelling and map crafting that went into Paper Mario. I wholly wasn't expecting to feel any certain way about the story in the game at all, but after finishing, I can say that it might be some of my favorite writing in any game I've played in a long time. And I also know that is a massive compliment that I shouldn't throw around willy-nilly. It's also wilder to think that I'm feeling this way when I'm playing as a silent protagonist from a predominantly platformer-centric series, but it's true. The clever writing and jokes and the situation Mario gets into keeps you engaged the entire time. This also doesn't take away from any of the other masterclasses in writing in AAA or indie games. But Paper Mario is a classic example of journey over destination because I knew Mario just beats Bowser in the end before even pressing start. It's a given. But the experiences I had along the way made it worth playing. This is due to the massive tapestry of characters you meet along the way, and the expansive, different locations you come across during your travels. The writers did an incredible job of building out the world of the Mushroom Kingdom because it expands the lines between good guys and bad guys. Up to this point, unless you count teaming up with Bowser in Super Mario RPG, Goombas, Koopas, Bob-ombs, and the other lot of similar characters were always the silent pawns of Bowser's army. You see a Goomba, you squash its ass. But Paper Mario explains that not all of these different, species are all good or bad. There are plenty of normal Koopas and Goombas, and there are some that want to do evil stuff for Bowser. So when these characters you formerly knew as enemies start teaming up with you, you aren't surprised. You're even less surprised that they also know how to speak. It does make you question if the legion of Goombas you have no doubt killed on World 1-1 in the last few decades had families that cared about them and had to grieve their deaths. Additionally, all of your new party members have different motivations for joining you. Goombario, the Goomba who was named after you, wants to prove to his family that he's grown up and can fend for himself. Ladybo, the unbothered and sassy Boo Princess, joins you because she wants to save her people from being the next snack consumed by the invincible dinosaur named Tubba. And then there's Lackey Lester, who just wants to travel with you to impress the girl he likes and show that he's way past cool. And even then, that's less than half of the people who ultimately end up joining you to help you along your way. But that doesn't mean your party members are the only well-written characters. There are 8 different chapters in Paper Mario which take you to different places across the Mushroom Kingdom, and each of them are well-crafted and distinct from one another. Each of these areas are inhabited by different types of staple Mario characters. Toad Town, which lies at the foot of the former site of Peach's castle, acts as the center of the kingdom. You can get to all the different sections of the map through Toad Town, but it's so well designed that you don't realize it's meant to be the central location of the game like a hub world. There's just so much extra content and stuff to do, like proving yourself at the dojo, clearing out the bloopers from the sewers to make fast travel locations, and helping a Toad find her voice again after the castle earthquake. It even becomes a massive part of Chapter 5 where the gang of Shy Guys invade a town and cause mayhem. It's so much more than just an area to pass through. Toad Town is just an integral part of the game. From Toad Town, you go through Dry Desert to get to the outpost, travel through a secret flower portal into the flower fields, or hitch a ride on a whale to Lava Island. These different areas showcase how massive the Mushroom Kingdom really is, which sets up Mario for interesting situations where word about how big of a hero he is hasn't traveled through outer reaches of the kingdom. Later on in the game, when you travel to Shiver City, Mario is literally framed for murder as he stumbles upon the presumed corpse of the city's mayor, and the game shifts briefly into a whodunit storyline where you have to clear your own name. And while the story is funny enough on its own, it's only amplified by the fact that the mayor's wife says she saw you kill him with her own 2 eyes. The city guard checks his body and presumes him dead on the scene, and then Mario has to clear his name. But then the mayor just wakes up and he's just like, "Oops, I was grabbing something, fell and hit my head on the floor, what you gonna do?" My girlfriend and I played the game together, and we were both dying at how wild of a moment it was when we thought someone actually died from murder in a Mario game. And that's just one example of many great moments. When you're trying to save the flower fields from drying up from lack of water and sun, Mario searches for a water stone for this lily pad who was worried about dying from the lack of water to float on. And when you finally find the stone with this rose who is obsessed with her look, she's literally like, "Aw, that's too bad about your friend, but like, I found it, and I think it's too pretty to give up because it matches how pretty I am." Pity about your friend, though. Even Peach is a more developed character in Paper Mario. It was such a breath of fresh air to see how integral of a character she was in this game. Even though she is kidnapped and floating in space, she manages to sneak out of her room every chapter to find information or items for Mario and helping out in any way she can. She's not a damsel in distress like she is in other games, and she's genuinely disheartened that she can't do more to help get herself out of the situation she finds herself in. I just love how the writers made her this defiant and powerful character who is just like weaseling her way out of her room multiple times and they can't figure out how. She reads Bowser's diary, goes on a game show to win a parasol that lets her disguise herself as anyone she points it at, and then she uses that to sneak out and get intel on the super weapon Bowser had commissioned to fight Mario. It was genuinely fun to play as her because you got to see that side of the story. Of course, there are other characters you meet in different parts of the map you travel to, but I don't want to spoil all the fun of it. But if I did have one nitpick about the game, it's Chapter 5 where the Shy Guys invade, not because the part of the map you visit is bad, but because backtracking required is just a bit grindy. This was really the only part of the game with a lot of back and forth, so it really stuck out. It also wasn't too horrible, but it just left a little bit of a bad taste in my mouth. The last thing I'll talk about before we dive into gameplay is the way the game looks. Paper Mario still looks really good, and I love the art style Nintendo went with when they were building the game. Much like Super Mario Bros. 3, Paper Mario has a kind of stage show aesthetic in that the game powers on and curtains open up to play the intro. This explains why the camera during world navigation is locked facing one direction, and why the overall feel of the game is a 2.5D style game where you can see that there are 3D assets, but you can't go behind them and look around. To take the stage show art further, battles take place on the foreground of the stage while the background is a minimal, flat cardboard representation of your current environment, almost as if the staircase you were in front of in the Ice Palace was flattened. Given that it's on the N64, I'm not sure it looks as good as it used to, because there are definitely points where the game has a bunch of conflicting 2D and 3D assets on the screen at once, but for the most part the charm and the overall direction of the aesthetic still very much shines through. I consider this one of the best looking N64 games I've played, and I've played a lot of very bad looking N64 games. The world is bright and vibrant, and it really stands out and pops off the screen. Gameplay is broken down into two main parts: world exploration with a heavy dose of puzzle solving and battles with enemies. Exploring the world means using your allies in your party to figure out how to navigate different obstacles and puzzles with a sprinkling in of light platforming for flavor. You have to solve a variety of puzzles and riddles by using what you learn from speaking to NPCs around the world too, which are often very clever and make you feel smart for figuring them out. There were still some very old school, "how the hell was I supposed to know how to figure that out?" moments in the game, but I found that just taking my time and being thorough when investigating the different sections of the world led me to stumble onto the right path. The other half of the game, the actual battles, is misleadingly simple at first because it opens as a standardish turn-based system. But it blooms out into a much more engaging system where to get the maximum amount of damage on an enemy, you need to follow different prompts on the screen. While I'm sure some people might not like how close it is to QuickTime events, I really loved how engaging the combat felt because I was directly responsible for how much damage I was doing. I never had to worry about a random number generator hitting or not because I was in control and the timing was all in my hands. I am a little worried about the permanent damage I did to my N64 controller by repeatedly mashing the stick left over and over again to charge Lady Bo's Moira Rose slap attack, but watching Lady Bo's uninterested face slap enemies right in the face makes it worth all the money I'm gonna have to spend to fix it down the road. Figuring out which of your party members did the most damage to different enemies felt like solving a puzzle in itself. For instance, if you're facing 4 enemies and don't know what to do you risk attacking them all at once and doing less damage each turn, but taking them out all at once? Or do you take them out one at a time in order to minimize how much damage you take each turn? That isn't a one-size-fits-all answer, and my girlfriend and I found ourselves trying to run through battles in our heads before making our first move to figure out the best strategy. The battle system expands even more by the badge system in the game. Throughout your travels, Mario finds these different badges that grant him different abilities, moves, increased health, and plenty of other upgrades. While I had some staple badges I kept on the entire game, like the quick change that lets me change out party members without wasting a turn, I found myself doing a lot of experimenting throughout the entire game, including in the final chapter. While not every badge fits your playstyle, some are just for fun, like the FX badge that changes the noises Mario makes when he's attacked. We freaking died at this. But all of this mixed together creates this complex yet approachable battle system that encourages critical thinking and constantly trying out new things as you go. It keeps things fresh because you don't just get stuck in the same rut for 24 hours of gameplay. While there were some heartbreaking moments where I had to put the controller down for a while due to some brutal game over screens, I always wanted to play more and see what was going to come next, what characters I would meet next, which puzzles I'd have to solve next. And to me, that's the story of Paper Mario. It keeps you guessing and it ensures you're excited. You're never bored at the least, and at most, if you're like me, it'll make you want to dive even further into the series. I'm trying very hard to find a copy of Thousand Year Door, and it kills me that I'll have to sell both kidneys if I ever want to own one. But Paper Mario for N64 is just one of the more enjoyable experiences I've had playing a game because there is almost nothing weak about it. And in the rare moments of imperfection, they never outweigh just how fun and rich this game is. I adore Paper Mario. It has atoned for the lifelong wounds it gave me as a kid. It's just an excellent example of the developers thinking outside the box for where Mario can go and what he can do, and I'm so happy I finally gave it the chance it deserved. It blew me away. But that's going to do it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. If you played Paper Mario as a kid, did you have the same experience I did with the reading, or were you smart and made it through in one try? I would genuinely love to hear if other people were in the same position I was. But if you haven't played it and you just like the video, be sure to leave a like on it. And lastly, if you want to see more content like this, you could always subscribe. I'd really appreciate it. But until next time, I've been Under 10 Hours. Thank you so much for watching, and have a great rest of your week.